Greetings, my customers. Look at one of these. And after 8 mint. Or probably, well, these are after 8. But if you bought from anywhere else, they'd just be after dinner mints, wouldn't they? Well, nothing like a nice after 8. After you sat down with your bottle of Matthias Rosé, had your steak dinner, and then finish off with coffee and mints. So we're going to make some cupcakes. I've invented these. I normally nick them. Well, I say nick them. I normally find some recipes and I think, well, I like that. I'll have to give it a go. Well, I've decided to make some after 8 cupcakes. So what I've got here is some after 8s. And I've got about 12. And I'm going to chop them all up. But don't worry. A bit like the Oreo one. There's more. So I'm just going to chop these up and then I'll tell you how we're going to make these cupcakes. So I'm going to start with some plain flour, 140 grams. And I'll put that into the sieve. I've got some caster sugar, 185 grams of that. I've got 30 grams of cocoa powder, which I instantly realised I'm almost out of cocoa powder. So if I want to make any more chocolate things, I'm going to have to get some more of that. I've got a quarter of a teaspoon of salt. And then I'm going to have half a teaspoon, get over, of a bicarb. Okay. Now, all of that, we're just going to sieve through into a bowl. I had the bigger bowl out earlier, and then remember that's the bowl that I'm going to be mixing everything up into. So you want to put your sieved ingredients in a bowl because we're going to mix the wet ingredients together and then add this afterwards. So I've chopped up my after 8s. What I did was actually I shoved them in the fridge. I thought if I chill them down, make them a little bit harder, they'll probably be better, easier for chopping. Luckily it's not particularly warm in here, otherwise I think they're just going to get all sticky. Okay, so I'm going to get that sieved, or sifted. Right, so my main mixing bowl, I'm going to add 100 mils of nice plain vegetable oil, something like sunflower oil. Don't really want to use olive because obviously it's got a bit of taste to it. Okay, I've got cold coffee. Now I nicked this from Cup Cake Jemma. She always puts coffee into her chocolate, and like she says, a lot of people, oh, I don't like coffee. Don't put coffee in it. You don't taste. It doesn't taste coffee. The coffee actually enhances the flavour of the chocolate. So I've got 120 mils of cold coffee in that case. And then I've got some buttermilk. This is the homemade buttermilk. Okay, lemon juice and milk. So it's not quite as thick as what you normally get. There's 125 mils of that. In that goes. We want some peppermint. Now we don't want to go overboard with that because remember there is mint in them, and plus too much of this peppermint extract or whatever can be a bit like. So we're going to have a quarter teaspoon of that. In that goes. And then finally 1 egg. Okay. Now you could do this in your stand mixer, but you don't really need to. And to be honest, I'm going to use my stand mixer later for making the buttercream, and it just means I've got to wash everything out, dry it all, and do it back again. So I'm going to do this in here. It's going to be quite a runny batter. Okay, so just going to break that egg up. Just going to sort of whisk this together, and then we'll add in the dry ingredients. Okay, I've got 12 cupcake cases. They're large ones again. Okay, Now, I've got my budget, me chopped up after it's forgetting what I'm doing now. Okay, I'll add them in after I've blended these two. So I'm going to add some of that flour, whisk that in, and then I'm going to gradually go through until I've got all that in, and then we can add the after eights. That's got that all mixed together, and now in goes them after eights. And I'm going to give all that a mix together. The only thing you'll notice with this obviously is they will sink. So when we come to dispense that into there, we need to bear that in mind. Now, like I said to you, it is a very runny batter. Okay, so get in there. The best way of obviously distributing this will be with a jug. So there's 12 poured. Notice the after eights did tend to clump together and sit at the bottom. So what was easiest was actually to pour some of the liquid into each, and then as you got down towards the bottom of the jug, help some of the bits of after eight out into it so that it's fairly evenly spread. So now they're going to go in the oven at 160 for about 20 to 25 minutes till they're cooked. You can test them on top, test them with a skewer. If they're a little bit springy on top, they're done, but check them with a skewer. And then obviously bring them out and let them cool, and we can make the topping. So that's the cupcakes out. You might find it, particularly if there's quite a lot of chunks of the after eights in there, it does tend to go a bit molten, so be careful when you're testing with a skewer, because it'll come out looking wet, but it's actually the chocolate. We had one that sort of exploded a little bit, but never mind. So they're going to cool, so we're now going to make a nice buttercream frosting with a hint of peppermint. So first thing first, I've got 150 grams of soft unsalted butter, which is now stuck in the bowl. Okay, and I'm just going to put that in there, and we're just going to whisk that for about 5 minutes to get it nice. Oh, I think helps the bloody thing, wouldn't it? And we're just going to cream that for about 5 minutes till it's nice and pale and fluffy. So now I've got 340 grams of icing sugar, and I'm going to add in about half of that. He says try not to drown in a cloud of icing sugar. And then got my guard on so we don't get ice sugar everywhere. Now we're just going to blend that in with the butter, and then I will add in the remainder and get that all whisked in. Right, it's still very dry at the minute, so first off I'm going to add 1/4 of a teaspoon of peppermint. Okay, and then I'm going to add about a tablespoon of milk. We may end up adding up to 3. Okay, so now I'm just going to get that all whisked in together. So transfer that to a piping bag, and what we're going to do is we're going to pipe a generous dollop on the top of each one. I wanted this a little bit stiffer. You'll see why in a minute. Right. You could have done it with a spoon or pelt it off or whatever if you like, but I wanted a bit of a mound. Okay, so you can just add a little bit, fill in some of these. Whoops, big air bubble there. Bag just farted at me. Now, if you were doing like a mint green, which a mint sort of, you know, we talk about mint green, you could have added a touch of green food colouring. However, this is slightly yellow, and in all honesty, I think that will do. our what's name, our after eights are actually white inside. Now to finish off, we need an after eight. Take our after eight and stick it in the top. Which is why, like I said, we wanted our buttercream a little bit stiffer than normal, just so it will actually stay in the top. If you're having problems getting in there, you can always stick it in sideways or lay it down. Okay, so I'm just going to get these finished and then we might have to do a taste test. Alright, whoa, almost went flying. Now this one is a little bit, I think this had quite a lot of after eight bits went in it, so it's quite liquidy inside. They are still slightly warm as well. So I'm going to eat this with a fork, but there you go. Yeah, it's a bit warm, so my buttercream's melting on it a bit. I've got the hint of the mint. It's not overpowering. I think most of it is coming through from the cupcake. I'm sorry, I meant the buttercream. I'm going to just eat that after eight and then try a bit more of the cupcake. Definitely, I think it's having them after eights in it. It's definitely made it taste like an after eight. They are very moist, like I say. I know this one's warm and the buttercream's melting a bit, but I think the after eights have made it more like that. You could cut back on the amount of chopped up after eights you put in it, but I wouldn't. So there you go, a Guzzling Gourmet exclusive after eight mint